All right. Hey, Jason, how are you? Did I press the right one?
Go ahead.
Hey,
Hello?
hey, Jason, how are you?
Yeah, can you hear me
I
okay?
can, sir. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm in a soundproof studio right now, so it'll be perfectly quiet.
Thank you, thank you. And I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to be with us. Hey, you won some awards recently, didn't you, for Ferguson? And can you tell the audience some of the awards you've won? Come on, Jason, pat yourself on the back. It's okay.
I've won some Missouri Broadcasting Awards for not only Ferguson but also reporting on the death of State Auditor Tom Schweik as well.
Excellent.
So I guess it's hard to really pat myself on the back because of those two topics,
Sure.
because they're both very sad and tragic situations. But I'm just keeping on, so
Got
to
it.
speak.
Got it. Well, like I said, I appreciate you being on. And as I said with your intro, you're a straight shooter. I don't know what your politics are, but you have your nose and your ear to the grindstone on Missouri and state politics. So I thought the audience may want to hear from you on some of the pressing issues that we're talking about statewide and local. One of the issues that I want to get into with you is our St. Louis mayor's race. Of course, that's generating a bunch of interest because St. Louis hasn't had a new mayor in about 20 years. So it's opened up everything, or everybody and everything is running, including the St. Louis police chief, who is going to keep that job while he runs for mayor.
Yes, it's a free-for-all, and that's not very surprising, given, as you just said, this is the first time this office has been open probably since 1993, because the other times when there was a new mayor, it was like an incumbent losing re-election. That's what happened with Freeman Bosworth Jr. and also Clarence Harmon when Slay won. So this is, I don't want to say it's unprecedented, but we haven't had a situation where there's no incumbent in a really long time. And people see the opportunity to move up in the pecking order in city politics. And so far you have, as you mentioned, Sam Dotson, the police chief. You have Louis Reed, the Board of Aldermen president. You have Alderman Lyda Cruson, who represents the Central Corridor in St. Louis. And then you have Antonio French, who represents part of North St. Louis. And that's just the people that have announced.
Right.
There are also kind of these zombie candidates who we're expecting to announce, and I don't mean zombie pejoratively. They just haven't announced yet. People like Tashara Jones, the city treasurer, and Gregory F.X. Daly, the collector of revenue. This is a situation where somebody who gets 19 or 20% of the vote could become the next mayor. It's quite amazing how big this field is going to get.
And as we know, anyone who wins the Democratic primary in St. Louis is probably going to be the next mayor, since Republicans aren't very well represented in St. Louis. Tell me, if you had to kind of handicap it right now between all of the candidates, who would you say is ahead? Who has the money advantage? Who has the institutional advantages?
Well, I think the person with the money advantage is Gregory F.X. Daly, which may be surprising to some people because he holds kind of a low-profile office of collector of revenue. But he has, I think, more money on hand, which is about $600,000 than some statewide candidates, just because he hasn't spent any of the money over the years.
Right.
So that's why he's seen as a pretty formidable candidate. Also because he has deep roots in South St. Louis, which has a lot of votes. But I think in order to do particularly well in this race, you're going to have to move beyond just the base where you live. And someone like Lyda Cruson, I think, is trying to do that. Not only do I think she's going to have a lot of support in her neck of the woods, which is the Stinkerton Oliver, Central West End area, she has made some inroads into South St. Louis as well. And I think that the biggest problem for Dotson, although I do think he has a lot of name recognition, and I think that he is actually going to possibly appeal, and this is going to sound kind of counterintuitive because you may think there are no Republicans in the city of St. Louis, but there actually are a decent amount in St. Louis. There's just not enough for a Republican to get elected. So often the Republicans vote in Democratic primaries. I think the problem for Dotson is, while I think he's going to be trying to go for the same type of voters that Gregory FX Daly and Lyda Crewson are kind of going for. And I don't know if he's going to be able to get a huge amount of support in the Central Corridor or North St. Louis. So I think he's kind of starting from that geographical disadvantage unless those two aforementioned candidates don't really take hold in that population-rich center. So who do I think is up right now? It's really early. I think in the next couple of months when people are campaigning and getting endorsements and raising money, we'll have a clearer picture. But I think any race where there's 6 or 7 like legitimate real candidates in it is just very difficult to handicap.
You know, and as you mentioned, you know, Tashara Jones, the treasurer, I think she has an exploratory committee that she opened.
Does, yes.
And then there's been talk of State Senator Jamila Nasheed also throwing her hat in this race. Yeah. Is there a possibility of St. Louis having its first African-American female mayor this year? Is that a possibility? Can they pull it out?
I think it's certainly possible because either Jones or Nasheed, regardless of what you think of their politics or, you know, how they've done their jobs, they're both formidable political figures. Jamila Nasheed has faced a lot of tough opponents from the time that she ran for the state house in 2006 and has won all of her races reasonably well. And Tashara Jones won a pretty crowded primary in 2012 against people that were spending a lot more money than her. Mm-hmm. So I think it's possible. I think, though, just as is the case with those candidates I just mentioned before that are kind of battling it out in largely white South St. Louis, if there are multiple black candidates that are battling it out in North St. Louis and the Central Corridor and parts of South St. Louis, which are predominantly African-American, it kind of makes it more difficult unless they branch out of where they represent now. And someone like Tashara Jones represents the whole city. Jamila Nasheed represents about half the city with her Senate district. I think it is certainly possible there could be a African-American female mayor for the first time, and there could be just flat out a female mayor for the first time, especially since Lyda Crewson is seen as a pretty serious candidate as well.
Good. Now, we all know that famous saying in politics. It says money is the mother's milk of politics. And we have an amendment, Amendment 2, that's going to be on the ballot that talks about campaign donation limits. I've read your article here that you had on this, which really surprised me, where there wasn't really a lot of opposition to it. And I think you mentioned maybe because they know that it's going to be ruled unconstitutional, so that's why no one put any money to defeat it.
I think that's possible. I just also think it's just really difficult to get Missouri voters to vote against an amendment that's going to limit the size of campaign donations. It's just a hard argument to make to everyday Missourians. Now, you and I are both pretty well versed in how Missouri politics work. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you're in kind of the ecosystem of Missouri politics, and you've seen what happened when there were donation limits in place, like let's say before 2006 or in that intervening period in 2007, donation limits have a difficult time of actually being effective because there is this kind of race to get around them. And that's true on the federal level. I think with this particular amendment, the people that put it forward, which, by the way, they're social conservative activists. They're not liberal Democrats that are putting this forward. It's
interesting.
From a completely different perspective. I think they're trying their best to try and close all the loopholes to get the money through. I think that it doesn't limit outside PACs, which I think is difficult to do with the Citizens United decision. It also doesn't limit municipal or county committees either. And I think that it's not out of the realm of possibility that, depending on how the Missouri Ethics Commission rules, that candidates may open up local or county committees, raise unlimited amounts of money in there, and then try to use that money to benefit a different type of campaign. That's not for certain that they're going to be able to do that, but if they are, I think that's going to make this amendment maybe a little bit less effective if people are willing to be as brazen to do that scenario I just mentioned.
Now, we got a couple of minutes left, and again, I thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk to us. There's another amendment that's Liz's favorite amendment, Amendment 3 on raising Missouri's tobacco tax. And like I said, I'm usually not a person that gets into all of the amendments and everything, but one thing that got my attention about this is when I saw the commercial with Joe Camel. And it was automatically, it got my interest. Tell us a little bit about Amendment 3 and what it's supposed to do.
Well, Amendment 3 would raise the tobacco tax in Missouri, and it would also raise tobacco taxes even more on smaller cigarette companies that don't pay into a settlement that occurred in the 1990s.
Okay.
And the money is generally supposed to go to early childhood education. But just like every tobacco tax increase that has come down the pike, it's encountered a lot of opposition. This time, not from big tobacco companies, which are actually spending a lot of money to get it passed, hence the Joe Camel commercial, but the small cigarette companies that would be affected by what I just mentioned. And I think any time you try to raise the cigarette tax, no matter how much it always is going to have some opposition to it from somewhere. And it's just going to remain to be seen if this particular one can get over the hump, so to speak, that previous cigarette tax hikes haven't. This is my 10th year covering Missouri politics. I've not seen a cigarette tax hike pass once, despite very strong efforts to do so.
Tell me this, does this amendment affect like vape machines and all that type of stuff, or is it just tobacco?
I think it's just tobacco, but I'm not 100% sure. I was just actually at a St. Louis County Council meeting where they actually banned the sale of tobacco and vaping products for people who are under 21 years old. I know from talking with people and seeing it firsthand that people that vape are very, very, very passionate. And I know that if this had included vaping products, I think we would heard a lot more about it right now. From my understanding, it is just like cigarettes and tobacco products. And if I'm wrong, then you can ban me from ever being on your show again.
Well, you know what? The audience will be able to do this because I was going to ask you to give, where the audience can reach you, what publication. I know you and Joe Manny's longtime St. Louis Post-Dispatch reporter do a podcast, and everybody who is everybody in politics does your podcast. I've never been on there, but Jason, you didn't get that joke.
Yeah, I did get that joke, and one day I'm sure that you will be on there.
No,
too.
I'm just joking. How can the audience get a hold of you and see your great work?
You can either go to stlpublicradio.org, follow me on Twitter at @Rosenbaum, or look me up on Facebook, Jason Rosenbaum. I just want to thank you for letting me be on your show, and I hope that the airwaves haven't spontaneously combusted because somebody from a public radio station has joined you today.
No way. Good information. I'm sure the audience enjoyed it just as much as I did.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend. All right. That was a good interview. Not that I did a good interview, but Jason Baum is very knowledgeable and knows a lot of what's going on. Always enjoy talking to him. Like I said, I don't know what his politics are. I can guess, but I will never know from hearing him or reading. He's a straight shooter. All right, we about